Welcome to this next episode of Just Liberty. Professor David VanDrunen is my special guest for today. What do you think is the part that a Christian law school like Liberty can play in a law school environment where a lot of these things that we're talking about might be familiar within the Liberty University School of Law context or even in the broader university, but may not be, it's kind of rare, frankly, if not almost singular in the present legal academic milieu. What's the contribution part that an institution like Liberty University School of Law can play in this context, where a lot of these notions are not necessarily what is taught? Wasn't taught generally at Northwestern. It wasn't generally taught across the country for the most part.
Right. Well, I don't spend a lot of my time thinking about what a law school should be or what a Christian law school should be, but it is nice being here for a short time and getting a sense of what's going on here and having a little opportunity to think about that. And just for me to have it to have an invitation to come and talk about the things that I was talking about this morning with your students and that we're talking about here right now, that's not an invitation that's going to come from the vast majority of law schools. And yet, I think we would all agree, I hope, here in this community, even though different people may have different views on some of the details of things, that these are important conversations to have. And certainly there are important conversations going on at all sorts of law schools. But in a sense, these kind of conversations are getting to the depths, are getting to the foundation. Yeah. And I mean, you go to any law school in the country and you hear talk about justice. There's a lot of talk about justice. And yet everyone says they're for justice. I mean, who defends injustice? Yeah. But what is justice exactly? Right. And if you are almost from the start eliminating, prohibiting conversations about justice that ask what God might have to do with it, or what our religious traditions might have to do about that. Yes. Boy, you're really impoverishing those conversations. And I think just the very fact that you can have these conversations here, you encourage those conversations here, that's something that your students are getting that they're not getting at other places. And then, and I'm sure this is one of the challenges that you have as you try to prepare students for the rest of their careers, is how do you continue those conversations when they go out into legal practice, if they go into legal academia, if they're working in government positions or think tanks, whatever the variety of things that they'll be doing, they're going to want to have these conversations with a lot of people who are not trained to have these conversations, who are not used to having these conversations. And so I think you have an opportunity here to try to think through with your students how to do that. And
the weightier matters of the law, right?
That is right. Yeah. And though, of course, you're trying to train them in a lot of the same things that the other schools are. They have to learn the rules of property and torts and all that. At the same time, you have the opportunity to give them lines of inquiry that they're not getting elsewhere. Yes. And I think that should be an exciting thing for you.
I think it is. Alan Dershowitz came to Liberty and said something like, "I did not think I would see the day when I would say that Liberty University has more academic freedom than Harvard does," is apparently what he said. I wasn't here when he said it, but I heard that he said that. And there is a sort of robust opportunity to engage the most important questions and to consider the theological, the biblical, the ramifications and bases, and discuss it, to talk about it, to write about it, and to do that, and not always agreeing. It's not like it's a uniform monolith of everyone who comes to Liberty University School of Law thinks exactly the same on everything all the time, even how to interpret and apply the scriptures. to it, even if there's a broad general agreement that the scriptures do matter for life and law and all of life, including law and government and things along those lines.
I think that came out this morning. I mean, in my lecture, and we had 20, 30 minutes of Q&A with students, and there were a lot of good questions, and they were obviously they weren't all coming from the same perspective, and yet I appreciated it. It was a welcoming environment, and it felt like you could I think as you're saying, you could have these conversations, and if you have if you're in an environment where these conversations are just off limits, or you can have them, but they have to be very, very private.
Off campus, or maybe a little taboo in terms of a sociological reckoning of it in some of these contexts. It strikes me that there's a lot of law professors in this country who would consider God or theology or religion or a book like the Bible to be maybe at best irrelevant, maybe inappropriate to inject into the conversation or address these sorts of matters, much less delving deeply into it and trying to think well along these lines. There does seem to be a lot of impoverishment across the legal academy along these lines due to these sorts of prevalent notions of these things being off limits or something we shouldn't be talking about. We should zip our lips about.
And yet there are serious Christians in the legal academy around, and
not as common as one might wish, but
no,
yes.
No, but there are, and it is nice to have that. And I hope you at Liberty can have opportunity to cultivate those relationships, and it's exciting to think that you could play a leadership role in that.
Yeah, I'd actually, one of the things I'm trying to do as the dean is to try to encourage more external service, to encourage more scholarship, to encourage more media engagement, to encourage more of sharing and interacting with that bigger, broader world out there. I think I think a lot of the things that are here are too good to just keep to ourselves, in my view. And so that's something I've been trying to encourage here at the law school, to try not to be just primarily and only insular, but to really expand in how much we're giving outside of our institution and sharing and discussing and interacting and engaging the broader society, the broader legal academy, etc., the broader profession, all the above. Is something that I'm really trying to foster and encourage while I'm here.
That's great.
Yeah. Well, that concludes this episode of Just Liberty. We will finish this series with one more episode. Thank you for joining us.